So I put in a sign up. So if you want to sign in and put your name and email that you're attending this meeting, that would be great. And then I'm also going to put in a link in the chat for a Google Notes page. So if you want to add some notes and conversations, we'd be glad to get all that added in. This is, I think, the second time this session has had a meeting. The first time I did not attend, it was in Chicago. It was a special interest group. And so I have some of the notes for that in the Google document, the notes document. And we were supposed to have a symposium this year, but that's been canceled. We had one person who agreed to still give the talk. And so one of the agendas I wanted to see if there's interest, and I don't know how many people who are here right now actually signed up for the symposium and submitted an abstract, but the plan is to have that symposium next year. And I'm just wanting to see if there's a lot of support for that, or what people are thinking about the symposium. So if anyone has any ideas, I guess I should maybe mention before I start that this whole spinach collection, theft, and security monitoring came from a talk given by the author of The Feather Thief, whose name I can't remember right now. Anyone remember that name? I should know that. Kirk Wallace Johnson gave a talk at the plenary session in Chicago in 2019 on the theft of some feathers from natural history museums. And this opened up a really big debate at the time about how we can better protect our collections, and also how we can monitor and notify other museums of potential problems and of thefts, so they can be both on the lookout for people who are stealing these things, and make sure they don't get in their collections, and also just to be on the lookout for people selling it, so they can we can monitor that and make sure that museums aren't buying it, or if they do hear about it, they can report it and have a way of recovering some of the specimens that have been lost by theft. If you haven't read The Feather Thief, it's an excellent book, and really some eye-opening stuff that goes on there. So does anyone, the other thing is Rob is the co-chair of this. He has a lot more expertise in this subject matter than I do, but I don't think Rob was able to make it today. So I'm gonna run the meeting. So was anyone here who had an abstract that was submitted, accepted, and then we did not get to run the symposium? Is anyone interested in continuing that? Oops. The sign-up sheet is view only. Huh. Let's see if I can fix that.
While you're working on that, Paul, I'm sort of digressing here, I guess, but this is Shelley James. I'm just wondering if this committee extends to even, not necessarily just internal collections theft, but the fact that people nefariously come into collections, gather data, and then go out and steal things from collections and collections data, like thinking of orchids and cycads and fossils and things like that. I'm wondering if that's part of the sort of mandate of this group.
I don't know if that was discussed in the first meeting, but I think it certainly is something that we could add easily enough to this. It's a big subject, and it's got a lot of, it's fairly complicated. One thing I was thinking too, if one of the ideas is to create a wiki or a best practice document, and I'm not sure how we would want to share that. Would we want to share that and make it publicly available, or just to members? I don't know if we want everything available online to not only potential folks who would use it, but also to potential thieves. So there's lots of problems that I can see with some of this. I think it's a good idea, but we definitely need to bring in some folks with security experience to work on this. I think I fixed the sign-up sheet. Is that able to sign in now? Let's see if I can. And I should fix the other one too. So you should be able to sign in, and you should be able to add to the wiki link. The other thing is, as I said, this meeting had not, we had not met other than in Chicago. And one of the reasons for that is I had no idea how to put a virtual meeting on. But after the last couple of months, I now understand how we can do Zoom meetings. And so I'm wondering if there's some point that people want to get together um, and get a list. As you can see, we've put together some information on communication channels. And one, we have to have a topic, a conversation. Do we want to create our own channel, or do we want to use existing channels? Whatever is probably easier. Do we want to reinvent stuff? And the art community has a lot of stuff going on with that, and that would be a good thing to do a lot of research in and see what they're doing. And hopefully we don't have to reinvent the wheel and just be able to use some of the stuff that the arts institutes and stuff are using. There's also stuff with eBay that has automatic monitoring and emails that are sent out. I think there's also some stuff with the U.S. Customs agencies when someone tries to bring something across the border. All custom agencies, maybe not U.S. But those are also things where people can get notified. And if anyone's had any experience with that, we would love to hear about it. And please add it to our dark document. Everyone's getting signed in. It was a lot more lively in Chicago, the discussion on all of this. Maybe I should have brought a clip from, I think we have some of that recorded. I don't know if we have the actual video, but I think we have some audio of that recorded.
Hey, Paul, I don't know if people know about Museum Security Networks. Anybody joined that or get updates from that? It seems to be a compilation of news releases and just news articles of thefts. I don't know if people all over the place contribute to it, and then you can have a daily update or a weekly update of stuff that's going on. So maybe we could have something like that for thefts. You know, in the natural history museum world, they're not, I guess thefts aren't always publicized or end up in the news, but we can contribute information to something like that to keep statistics on how many thefts there are, what type of thefts, what circumstances they might occur in.
No, I think that would be excellent. What media is this in? Is this email list or?
Yeah, it's an email list. It's a website, Museum Security Network, and you can apply to, you just send them an email and say what your, you know, where you work, so they know that you're a museum person, and then they, you just get added to that. So I get an email once a week that it's a compilation of all the information about thefts and follow-ups of some thefts and things like that, vandalism, all types of things.
Okay, so is that a Google group? Did I just come across that, or is that something else?
Yeah, I think you can just, I'll look it up and I'll put the link in the document.
Excellent. Oh, I think Andy already did. Does anyone else have a way they stay up with thefts and stuff like that? Is there, I know PaleoNet, sometimes we get notifications when a geology specimen has gone missing. I know there are some Stegosaurus footprints quite a while ago in Australia that where someone took a rock saw and cut them right out of the formation, and we were on a warrant to look out for these. These were secret to, I think, Aboriginals in Australia, and somehow someone went in and dug them right out, sawed them right out.
I have a Google search setups that will automatically email me anytime it sees anything about museum theft.
This is something you set up on your own?
Yes.
How many things do you normally see a week out of curiosity, or month, or whatever? Just a rough.
Relevant things. It pulls a lot of old articles, so I'm getting maybe 1 or 2 new things a week. And I've set up 2 different ones, one that's just museum theft and another one that is, excuse me, I set up 3. So one that is museum theft, one that is natural history collections theft, and another one that is repository theft. So it pulls in a lot of erroneous to my actual interests information, but I will get hits from things like it's a lot of it is art museum that comes across, because that seems to be the one thing that is most popular. There has been a lot of information about the Isabel Stewart Garden Museum, because that resurged in the press fairly recently. And then there have been a handful of articles over the course of the last few months where it was very small institutions that did have natural history collections that were experiencing some thefts.
So do you think it's worth the time and effort to go through it all? Is that, do you weed out more, or?
I think I would need to refine it to make it a little more useful, I think. But I am working on compiling at least something, so I'm keeping myself in the know for what information is actually out there, because we seem to be fairly closeted in what we tell any media.
Right, that's another issue. A lot of museums have policies where they don't want to make announcements or let people know what has happened as a way of protecting themselves, and that's another big issue that needs to be dealt with. Elspeth, is that museum group just for the United Kingdoms?
I was just having a look at it online to see who it covers. I think it is UK. I'm just having a scroll down at all the members. Yeah, it's UK. It's not one I'd come across before. It was just some of the words that people were using meant I came across this. Is anyone a member of this? It's the National Museum Security Group. Yeah, I'm just having it is, oh, Q is a member, and the NHM, which I hadn't realised, and Tring. Yeah, it's one I hadn't come across before, but it's an interesting model.
All right. So, Adam, you had a registry idea. You want to explain that?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just thinking of ideas for sort of registering things in a central location, and a lot of our natural history specimens are already on GBIF. So I was wondering if if there was a field that would be appropriate for indicating that a specimen is suspected of being stolen, and then you could just go there and find all of the currently stolen natural history objects.
No, that's a really interesting idea. I don't think I've heard anything like that before. I'm trying to see if Kate Webbink is around, or anyone from GBIF who might have some ideas on that.
Hey, Adam, do you know if there's a Darwin core field that sort of circumscribes that information?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, you could probably shoehorn it into something, but I would have to look at those.
Yeah, you just need to make sure that everybody's using the same field. It may be something to bring up to Tadwig as a potential add to the
Right.
Darwin core terms. Yeah, it's a great idea.
And Erica makes a good point that the minerals, and I assume gems, are not covered by GBIF, so that would be a whole selection that's that would not be. Who does cover minerals? I know a lot of databases and stuff. Minerals are not part of it. Does anyone work with minerals and know? Is there a group for that? MinDat.
Yeah, MinDat is a non-for-profit that is all about minerals and the different types of minerals. And there's a really active discussion forum. So that could be someplace you could go for, hey, this was stolen. Has anyone seen this? Because a lot of amateur collectors who go to mineral shows would be on that forum.
And I assume there's probably one for, I know there's, I don't know what they are, but I know there's some meteorite ones out there too. I assume meteorites are not covered by GBIF.
I'm not sure where you could find meteorites. There's a few websites that have the official repositories for meteorites, but I'm sure there's other active forums.
Right, I know the Field Museum and the Milwaukee Public Museum a couple of years ago was involved in finding a meteorite that had been stolen and returning it to the proper home. Someone brought it in to try to identify it or something, and there's a whole story behind it, which I don't know. But that was that made the news and everything. It was kind of a fun story, but I don't know all the details. But I know somehow, I think there's an email list or something that they went into and found out about it. There's science groups. Well, that's a good point about how often GBIF is updated. These tend to be quick things that happen. You want the alerts right away. And Tiffany makes another good point with amateur groups. And that's a good point, but the problem with the amateur groups is there's just so many of them scattered all about it. I'm not sure how you'd have to have each museum or institution work with their local group, and even then, geology with geology and all the bird watchers and stuff like that. Unless anyone has ideas on how that could be, I don't know if it could be combined into one large group or something that would spread out to all of them.
I think for something like that, I'm a member of the Mid-America, well, I'm secretary of the Mid-America Paleo Society. So we would definitely put something on our website to alert members about fossils that were stolen. And then I've got contacts with other mineral groups as well. So, you know, and occasionally we do put out announcements about things that have gone missing from museums. I think it's probably a meteorite thing we put out. I just forward anything that is rock related to them, and then they put that in the newsletter or on the website.
Right. I know we have Asconi here in Chicago, and we have the Chicagoland Gem, Mineral, and Fossil Club too. It would just be I guess, yeah, someone said individuals would send info to each group and stuff after this. I don't know if there's an easier way to automate it, or just have to go by that. What's the comment about the precious was a squirrel or rodent mask?
No, it was just one of our curators in the African Museum when we were discussing about the precious African masks that can, if they are stolen, they cost 200 to 500,000 euro. But our curator said, I have one rodent skeleton costs only €1 if it gets stolen, but I have 1.5 million. So if they are all stolen or damaged, it's more expensive than something considered very precious. And that's something that is mostly not addressed when something gets stolen or damaged. It's the quantity, even if the unit level is not so expensive.
Right, I guess that's the same thing in fossil invertebrates. Our fossils are not worth nearly as much as, let's say, Sue or one dinosaur skeleton, but we have millions of them, and so I guess it would add up in the long run. The trick is it would be difficult to steal all of them. It's a huge area that they take up, and so you'd have to really be motivated to want to do that. But you never know, especially like with the feather thief thing. I think that was just an instance where, at least for me, I had no idea that people valued these these feathers, these tropical feathers, so much to make fly fishing ties. I'd never heard of that until I read the book. Right, Andy makes a good point about the endangered species. I think everyone here probably has heard about the rhinoceros horns being stolen from many museums. If anyone has any info on that or want to share a story on that. I know at Wales there's a talk on rhino horns being taken.
Yeah, there are potentially a lot of specimens in our collections that could be valuable to a specific community. I'm thinking potentially of things that are used in traditional medicines, or fossils, or endangered species, or those kinds of things. We at KU had 2 fossils stolen out of our displays. They weren't worth very much. They were both teaching specimens, but still somebody decided that it was worth their while to yank them out of their mounts on the display and take them home with them.
And that was one of the articles that turned up in my searches.
Yeah, it's, and Adam and Barbara both mentioned insurance values, and that's always tricky. You can insure a brachiopod. You could probably buy one at a meeting for $1 or $2. But if that brachiopod is from Antarctica, what's the replacement cost of that? And so it's, street value versus replacement value is a key topic. Oop, sorry, Talia.
Sorry, Paul, that was me. I keep logging in the Spinach account and showing up as Barbara. Apologies.
Oh, no worries. You got anything on insurance value, or anyone have a way of coming up with values for that?
I have a question about that. It's something we've been trying to evaluate at University of Colorado. So we're covered under our university's fine art insurance policy. And they ask us, every year, do we need to increase the value? And everybody kind of does it different. And we've been interested in exploring ways of coming up with something that's more concrete on how to do that. I think it was interesting, the person that said they had 1.5 million, was it rodents, rodent skeletons. And so I know some collections at our institution will say, okay, well, we got 100 more of, 100 more rodents or whatever. And so that equals, we need to, up the value by a certain amount. But I think it's really unclear, and we were interested if people had a better way of doing it.
Yeah, I know occasionally I'm asked for insurance values and I have no idea what to put for a lot of specimens. I don't purchase them. I know very little about it. So, and with fossil invertebrates, generally the trilobites and some Mason Creek stuff can have a somewhat high commercial value, but a lot of the stuff people don't collect, or it's just mainly for research or scientific purposes. So it's difficult, and at least I don't know how to come up with a good insurance number for that.
Regarding your insurance, have you spoken to any insurance brokers? I know that there are a lot of insurance companies that work with fine arts collections who I'm sure would be very happy to talk to different museum people and help them with that. I work at an anthropology museum, so we kind of go into both worlds.
we are having herbarium sheet material at the H2H, and we have gone through an insurance process, and our artifacts were obviously easier to estimate than the dried herbarium material that is glued on paper, which often just translates to dead sticks on paper for a lot of people, and the scientific value is very hard to estimate. What we sometimes do is we consider who the collector was. If it was somebody famous like Thoreau or Muir or somebody, is there handwriting on the sheet somewhere? And then we, or Exicadi sets, for instance, the issued Exicadi sets. And then we go and check out auctions. And sometimes you actually get really good hits that you can actually compare your material to. And then you can actually put a value on, at least temporarily, and say, well, this set or this, signed paper or whatever document, herbarium material, went for this amount of money at this point in time, and that definitely is helping.
No, a good point. I see there's a couple more things on mammals and some issues with actually people damaging stuff because of how it was collected or the time with colonialism and issues like that. But we got about, I think, 2 minutes left. And so the first thing I want to do is let people know that we will try to run that, maybe I shouldn't say try, we will submit a symposium for next year's spinach on collection theft and security monitoring. And hopefully we can get some of the abstracts that were not going to be presented this year to resubmit their abstracts, and anything new would be great. So if you have some stories, some ideas, or just past experiences, I think that would be great. And then the other question, if you want, we've already signed in your names, hopefully, and your emails. I will send out something in the future asking if we want to get together in a Zoom meeting and try to come up with some best practices, or at least an outline for a document that we can eventually get up on the Spinach webpage, and just have a lot of resources listed, and what to do if you come into the museum one day and you see that someone has broken in. What steps should you do? How should you handle it? Who should you notify? What resources can you look at right away? Because all that'll be important. So hopefully we can have a talk like that sometime, maybe this summer or in the fall, if there's enough interest. So let me know. Anything else to ask or question? What is Brandy has a link, PDF. Brandy, you want to explain what the PDF is? I will look it up. Cost documents. All right, so it's a link to a PDF on the curation cost documents. And that's another good point. The specimens, someone mentioned, just sticks on a piece of paper, but there's a lot of curation work and effort into a lot of specimens, whether it's the labels, keeping the data straight in a database, entering all that data, preserving it to acid-free paper, and all the documentation that goes with it. And so certainly that should be part of the cost of specimens in a collection. All right, Shelley wrote in work to designate type specimens. And I think we have another meeting starting now.
Correct. Bylaws is starting, but I do not see Linda Ford here. So
so we got bonus time.
if you guys want to carry on, and as soon as I see Linda, I will alert you. That would be fine too.
Yeah, I can explain what I meant by that. So my herbarium, so Michaela was talking about, going out and finding herbarium specimens at auction or whatever else. When we came down to trying to value our collection, we ended up having to use a recollection cost because there wasn't really, we couldn't find a true market value for collections. But then historical specimens, it was like, well, how do we put a value on a historical specimen? And unfortunately, you can't, because it's illegal to sell them, so you can't put a dollar value on them. But then talking about type specimens, there's a whole lot of work that goes into, you know, designating and describing species. So our type specimens came out at several $1,000s a piece. And so that added to the cost of the value of the collection, and that became our insurance value.
Huh. I've never heard that before. That's interesting. Is there any worry that value, I'm here in the Chicago region with the Maison Creek fossils, it became very trendy in the 1960s and 70s to try to get a type specimen in your own private collection. People would bring stuff they found. There was a lot of new species being found in this outcrop, and so they would maybe donate half this. They're often part and counterpart, and people donate half to the museum and half to keep half for their own private collection. And because they're often one-of-a-kind fossils, or the curator at that time often agreed to it with the stipulation that they would be donated to the field museum when the collection, when they passed away or the collection was, they're going to get rid of it. And so that has worked sometimes, but not always. But it worries me to make type collections seem extra expensive just because people will want them more than, but